Hi, this is Zach Anderson, and in this video, I'll be going over part number 2 for Lab 3. So without further ado, let's begin. Here we have the downloaded file of the homesite.pcap. So let's just jump right into it. So what is the IP address of the client? In this case, that's going to be the source since we're using this. So we're going to have a 192.168.1.100. Question number 2, it was more of a setup step, so we completed it. So what we need to do is come up here to complete it. We need to enter in HTTP and it is copied in the text. So let me grab that from the file real quick, and that's what we're going to filter by. So moving on to number 3. So we need to consider now the get. What are the source and destination IP addresses from the first get and then the destination port and stuff. So here we see is our first get. So we come down here, we can expand all of this. So what we're going to see first of all is our source IP address of 192.168.1.100. We see our destination IP is 64.233.169.104. And then if we scroll down a little further, we're going to see that our source port and destination port are here. So source port of 4335, destination port of 80. Next, we can move on to number 4. So at what time is the 200 OK message sent? So we find this fella, 1.1, 200 OK. We see that the time comes out to 7.158797 with a source address of the 64, a destination address of the 192, and then if we come down here, we see the source port becomes 80, and the destination becomes 4335. Next, we're going to move on to number 5. So recall that the get command, synac, all that kind of junk. What are the source in for the top SYN segments? And then, note these two. You'll have to clear the filter, TCP. So let's clear this fella. Cool. We can come up here, and now we're going to get our synac segments. So we're looking for about the exact same time. And this is where we're going to find our SYN and ACK. So for question number 5, we need to scroll up just before our original here. So we're going to end up using these values here. So we see that the first SYN segment was set at 7.075, while the ACK segment, which we see down here, was set at 7.109. And we see that for the SYN segment, we have the source IP of 192, destination IP of 64, source port 4335, destination port 80. If we come down to the ACK segment, we're going to see that we also have the source of 192 for the IP, the destination IP of 64, and then similar process, or exact same process rather, we see the source port and the destination port are also the same. Given that, we're good to come down to number 6. Here for question number 6, we've opened the ISP side trace file, and we are going to find at what point does this message appear in the NAT ISP side trace. So we're trying to match it as close as possible to the 7.1. So to do that, we just need to find what time it's going to be sent. So we ended up identifying that it was 6.6693, so this guy right here. And this gives us a source IP of 71.192.34.104. And then we're back to the destination IP of the 64 that we have been using. And we can come down to see our source port here. So we have our source port of 4338 and the destination of 80. And then which of the fields are the same, which are different. So we identified that destination IP and port are the same, while the source IP and source port are different than our answer to question 3 above. So number 7, are any fields in the HTTP GET message change? Which of the following fields? So we said no, none of the HTTP GET messages are changed. The following fields in the IP datagram that are the version flags. Version flags and header length do not change, but the checksum does, and the checksum changes because it needs to change, and this is due to the recalculation to reflect IP header change. A lot of words in there, but hopefully that got to the point. Next, we're going to identify when the first 200 OK message is received. So we identified the time to be 0.232 in this ISP file. And this is going to give us a source IP of the 74.125.91 and then the destination of 71.192.34104, and we see some of the process, source port 80, destination port 4330, and which of the fields are the same. So the source IP and destination port are different, while the source port is the same. So for question number 9, we need to find what time the client to server SYN segment and the server to client ACK segment corresponding to the segments in question 5 were captured. So we see that the time segments were 0.167 and then 0.232. And what are the source and destination IP addresses and source and destination ports for both of the segments? So we will start with the two source IPs in order. So the first IP I will name will be for the first and then second respectively. So we have the two source IPs of 71.192 and then the 74.125. The destinations are those just reversed. So we start with the 74.125 and go to the 71.192. And similarly, the source ports and destination ports are also just reversed. So for the source ports in order, 4330 and 80, destination goes to 80 and 4330. For the last part of that question, we see that the source IP, source port, and destination IP are different, while the destination port is the same. Given that, we then are done using this, and we do need to fill out a NAT translation table, which would be present in the Lab 3 answer sheet. So that should do it for this video. Thank you for listening.